Hello and welcome to our bi-weekly, I was going to say bi-weekly annual stream, but that's like twice in a row I think I've thought that. Annual just sounds good, our annual stream. Welcome to our...
They would be so happy.
Welcome to our bi-weekly dev stream where we talk about all things going on behind the scenes in Foxhole and answer your questions and all that fun stuff. I think we got some neat stuff today, but first of all, my name is Matt, this is HP, and this is Mark. And we're going to start off by just talking about the things that have been going on over here, Clapfoot, and in the world of Foxhole, which is World Conquest.
Yes.
And it's been fun and exciting and really crazy and stressful and cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, so the story behind the last update was after the first World Conquest, which had a lot of like technical issues, I would say, right? I think it was a very technical issue heavy test. We were able to patch a lot of the
glaring problems,
technical problems, and then also make a couple of adjustments on the gameplay side. But we worked on that last Monday and Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then we rolled out that patch on Thursday. We started the second test. And that test is still going. I know that some players may have stopped playing, but some players are still playing. And I think there's a couple of, we've been hearing all your feedback. There's a couple of wins that I think, needs to be talked about. One is that on the technical side, that everything has been holding up extremely well.
So for us, I would say it's a huge success just to have it going on for so long and making sure that it's
because there's a lot of new technologies that we're using. There is like a backend server that kind of makes some of the cross-region features like maps and travel and chat and stuff like that work, and that stuff has been holding up extremely well. The actual regional servers themselves have been holding up quite well in terms of the performance and such. So at least we're not contending with those issues right now, right? Which is good. Like we have a stable technical platform, which is great. And then on the gameplay side, there were obviously some rough edges, but one of the things is that we are happy about is that regardless of how we got here, the war is still going on, which is something that none of the previous conquests have gotten this far yet, and it's like a foot in the door, right?
Yeah,
it's a foot in the door to longer wars, and we're gonna have to make a bunch of adjustments to make the process to actually reach the long wars smoother and remove some of the friction there, but at least we're there, right? And I think that some of the problems, there are the gameplay issues, but there's other factors, right? Like one, the entire player base hasn't been moved over to World Conquest, so that on its own creates certain problems. Like maybe there's not enough players at certain times of the day that some of you guys have previously cited as a problem, right? And then there's also the like experience, like the sort of the mental transition, right? Like a lot of players are used to certain things in the game, are used to the pacing being a certain way with regards to like how logi works, how the combat works, and
the expectation of as well of all that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that like transitioning over is both a constant reworking of the gameplay to make it better, but it's also a reworking of how we all see the game, right? So I think it's a bit of both, right? And I think that the next time that we start a new conquest, I think that it's important not to rush to a conclusion, right? That even if all the mechanics are working the way they're supposed to, if everybody's sort of rushing to a mental conclusion on like the result of the war, it doesn't matter what the game is, right? So I think it's a bit of both, right? And that's why for this test we haven't stopped it, because for better or worse, we want to see it through, right?
Yes.
We want to see
what happens.
What happens. We want to see the tech tree go all the way to the tanks, and then you know, maybe a couple of days later, if it's, you know, things become really stagnant and, you know, it's kind of over, then maybe like we make a call to stop it at that point. But I think for now, at least for us, that war is still on, right?
Yeah.
And we're gonna be able to sort of see. This has been valuable because we've gotten a lot of information about, like, for example, how long should structures be staying in the world, right? Without actually running a test this long, we'll never know, right? And one of the mistakes that we made in the past is that we would kind of give up too easily, right? Like, oh, if the conquests aren't lasting long, then, you know, let's just stop doing it. This is getting hard, you know, like, players are getting frustrated, right? But I think what we're holding strong to this time is that, you know, even if some players are frustrated, we're gonna see this through, right? Like,
we want to see the end. We want to see what happens. We want to see how people take it as a player perspective. I would say that's our dev perspective and how we feel. I think it's interesting as well as a player that this is the first real long war. Therefore, I think winning this one and combating and making sure that it gets to the end, it's interesting. It's a different perspective on how you as a player face the game. I think that's there's value on that as well. I hope you guys enjoy it as well.
Yeah.
I think it's been interesting to watch play out, because this is, for people who haven't been with us since the pre-alpha days, this is actually our second attempt at World Conquest as well.
Yeah.
And the first one taught us a lot. I would argue that this one is teaching us a lot more. And I think there's a lot more complexity in the game now. And so I think it's going to be a bit of a feeling out process, but it's been extremely valuable for us.
Yeah.
So I hope you guys are enjoying it as much as we're enjoying watching things fold out and, like, planning for the next iteration.
Yeah, I think that one of the big things that will help everyone is a whole lot, like, patience from our side and from the player base side, because, like I said previously, you know, one of the reasons why wars are short is because we used to get locked into this, like, weekly war cycle, and these, you know, when we did World Conquest, we got locked into the cycle of those things being short because we weren't willing to give things a chance, right? We weren't willing to put things in there that take longer, and I think that it's important that if we ever want to see this kind of meaningful change and we want to break out of this cycle of, like, you know, everything happens in one day, or else it does, or else, like, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, it's going to require a paradigm shift, right?
And it's important to remember the initial vision of the game was that wars could last a long time. So for us to get impatient about, like, it taking longer than a day is, like, we gotta hold back on that and try to figure out, like, what's the most fun over that long period of time, right?
It might be a little bit painful right now, but I think that this is worthwhile test.
Exactly.
Yeah. To see what happens. And you know what? Like, if we end up realizing that maybe there's some mid game there that is taking too long, we can't. These are the kind of things that end up being adjusted. This is the kind of tests that are important to us.
Yeah. And sometimes you do have to, like, overshoot first.
Yeah, and
maybe
then we
things
can
are kind of boring, right? But once you overshoot, then you know where you have to, like, tighten things up, right? But if you don't overshoot, you're just kind of stuck in a circle of the same thing, right?
Yeah. This is the thing with, like, game balancing too, especially that's something that I really believe in anyway. Especially when we were working on Fortified, and I think sometimes it bleeds into this game as well. When you need to balance something, you need to, like, swing hard, because you need to see how it works, and the complete opposite of where you were previously. So you may see balancing kind of flip-flop back and forth, and that's intentional, just so that we can gauge, like, and kind of, like, get it massaged into that perfect position. And that's a part of making games. It's a part of balancing games, and it's really it's actually really exciting. Like, do you remember the shotgun was a really good example of just, like, hard swing. It is the most destructive weapon.
That was just a mistake. But.
Partially, you did want to make it strong though. So
no,
I mean, hey, we got some valuable information about swinging.
What is too strong?
Anyway, we're gonna move on to I think community highlights.
Yeah.
So HB is gonna take you guys on a journey. through the community's
the magical journey
coolest stuff this week.
of the community highlights. Okay, so this one I gotta be completely honest. I just looked at these images by Clapfoot and I thought they were awesome. I don't have much to say about them besides the one on the right looks like a little bit like Boba Fett in a colonial style. But I just like these images. They're all muddy and like.
Speaking of fortified,
Looks
the guy
like
on the
Captain
left
looks a lot like the.
looks a lot like one of our characters.
Yeah.
Or Captain America as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Captain Warden.
Captain Warden.
Captain Siva.
Captain Warden Colonial Fat. Yeah. I just love the way they were done, and the expression on the Warden is so good. But anyway, that. Yeah, I didn't have much to say. Just check it out. But these, though, on the other hand, these are really cool because these are proposed. It's just like a variation of how to do the inventory and how they would work in the Foxhole universe. And these were cool because they also generated a lot of talks in the office.
Yeah, I saw these and I think I posted them, and like the immediate thought that came up with a bunch of people, including myself, was it's like Darkest Dungeon, Darkest Foxhole, and that's a cool thing. I think definitely this evokes a lot of really interesting things to discuss.
It was interesting, particularly for me. I do a lot of the UI, right? And one of the things that we are always talking about, we are doing. We mentioned that we are doing a little bit of a UI revamp as we are pushing through the One World. As we're going through One World, we're doing a lot of the UI, and this gives ideas. I don't like as it is. Of course, it doesn't fit the theme, the thematic of the UI that we already have, but the way things are laid out and like orders of importance of certain objects, these all look really cool and brings me ideas on how to maybe shift things if we ever need. We always said that we wanted to have different vestments on one way, shape or form. So having something like that maybe is the way. So yeah, thank you very much KL for doing these ones. They were thought-provoking. At least.
Are these the most updated versions? Because I know that they posted like further iterations after I
would assume so because I took these ones straight from the community highlights. Okay. You guys gonna see it soon. It's community highlights is gonna be on probably either today or tomorrow. KFC did a fantastic job finishing it once again, and thank you guys for submitting stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah, this one is really cool.
This one is really cool, right? Like I really enjoy it.
It's like I almost want to see a game that is
so Foxhole Mobile,
like Foxhole Borderlands. It's kind of what I saw from it, right? It's like
this reminds me
a cell shaded version of Foxhole.
2D Foxhole platformer.
Yeah.
What was the name of that game?
Which one?
That you always really like. You've always really liked. That's like it was like an old PC game. It's kind of like a top down. Like Commandos.
Jagged Alliance.
Jagged Alliance. This reminds me of like what could be in a game like Jagged Alliance for Foxhole, like with like highly in depth like character like sheets and stuff like that.
In that game, their inventory is much more there are specific places where you put like specific weapons. It's not just like a generic backpack. So it's kind of cool to see this.
Yeah, but even the concept of having like backpacks with like you can see like in the top different sizes, and you have the side satchel that can store last in the actual backpack. All these are really cool in my opinion.
Cool.
Yeah. But that was it. Check out the community highlights when it comes out today or tomorrow.
So should we call this section like the community highlights like preview?
The community highlights.
Highlights. The highlights.
The highlights squared.
Because it's sort of like just like a chunk of the community.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chris Von Chicken is doing a really good job ever since he took those over. So go check them out. Next is our development update. We have some little things and big things, and in progress things to talk about. So I hope you guys are excited.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, yeah. Start with a showstopper.
Okay. So as you guys know, we've been besides the One World, besides the World Conquest part of the One World, another thing that we want to take a look at is communications in general. We're going to be talking about that further in the future. So the first step for that is actually redesigning the chat window, because we know that our chat window is lacking on a lot of things right now. So this is not what the chat window will look like this, at least visually.
Yeah.
There's a very good chance that this is just a mock-up that I did when I was explaining to Mark some of the concepts that I was looking for and what I thought would be better. So one of the things that I'm gonna be the one helming this one. So what I'm gonna ask you guys, is that if possible, by the end of this dev stream, there's gonna be a new chat on the Discord. It's gonna be a chat called chat window suggestions and feedbacks. The reason for that is that there have been suggestions throughout the year regarding the chat, and I've actually, between today and yesterday, I went through the old suggestions to make sure I had all of them. But as you can see from the one on the right there, we're thinking about giving you guys more power, more versatility on how to deal with this chat window. So you can, if you look at the one in here, yes, that you can see kind of like filters. The idea is that if we go with this idea, each tab you guys would be able to customize filtering certain chats that you want or you don't want to see, so you don't see spam and stuff like that. So one of the things that I want from you guys, the first one, is what kind of filters and what kind of different chat channels you guys think would be important. And we have to ask you guys because you're the ones on the trenches actually knowing what information you need all the time. So that's the first thing that I want from you guys. And again, this suggestion channel will be open on the Foxhole Discord. If there's a mod listening to the dev stream right now, you can turn on the chat right now. It's ready already. The second thing that I want from you guys is more suggestions. What would you guys think would be cool to have in the chat? What changes from what we have right now would be interesting? I know that some people have problems with the alt chat. I know some people have problems with the sounds. These are all that we already know, but more ideas. Sometimes a crazy idea that you guys have for the chat, it's something that might never be implemented, so full disclaimer, but it's something that might trigger something on us to change. I have a very crazy idea that I want to discuss with you that I was discussing with one of our programmers that was triggered by one of the suggestions that I read recently, one of the old ones. So please send me your ideas. We want this chat to be robust enough that you guys can depend on, and we want this chat to be customizable enough that everybody can have their own flavor and make that important.
Yeah, like usually, and when it comes to making suggestions, a good approach usually is to take a look at what players are trying to do already, right?
Yeah.
Because things that people are trying to naturally do will be, there's much more value in taking that and then trying to enhance that often than coming up with an entirely new thing, like a new paradigm that nobody even knows about, nobody cares about, nobody uses, but on paper sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to these tools, it's always if there's a Logi guy who constantly wants to know about what the other Logi players are doing, see, that's a good start, right? Because that's naturally what you want to do, right? And this was an interesting. I think this was a very interesting exercise because when we started looking at the concepts for the chat window, and we were like, one of our first thoughts was, at least one of the first thoughts from me was like, hey, it was sort of like the naive approach of we should add a tab for squads, we should add a tab for like Logi, we should, and then we had like a discussion, and then we went back to like the principles of the game, which is like, we want to give players the raw tools, and then we let them figure out what the best way, how to use those tools, right?
Yeah.
Rather than us saying,
this is the way you should do.
This is the way you should play, which is why the approach that we're currently taking a look at in these mock-ups is what's the maximum amount of flexibility, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool personally, and I think that another cool thing to point out here, and this is a concept that we're thinking about, is having a persistent board, allowing you to leave persistent messages behind for the next group of players, because it's a persistent war. So right now it's very difficult, and I was actually hearing some of this in a feedback voice hangout yesterday, right? Is that it's very difficult to leave behind messages for future players, right? Like new players come on and they don't know what the heck, like, why are these storage boxes here? Like, why is this happening? Why are you doing this? And there's a lot of ways that can be done. And I think in the area of the text chat window, maybe there is a tool we can put there that allows players to leave behind these messages. But it's just a concept right now. We're thinking about it. So if that idea excites you, then please let us know.
Again, just so you're clear, I'm gonna be the one like reading all the messages in that board, but please try to post all the suggestions and feedbacks on that new board that Gamma said that is already open. So that's pretty good. You guys can start posting that right now, or wait for the end of the dev stream. But try not to post it in the World Conquest discussion and then if it's regarding the chat, try to post there so I'll be able to easily take a look at everything.
So the one thing I want to say is what's really exciting about this is like this is something that we've known and wanted to talk about and wanted to work on for like day 2 of the game being out there, and we've made a lot of improvements in the chat window that we have currently in game, but it definitely, I think, is something over time we've realized is the need of like a lot of functionality simply due to the sheer nature of the game. So to me, looking at this, it's really exciting about the possibilities. And also, like, a lot of people worried about the way that it looks, the font being hard to read. Like, don't worry about that, because we're gonna like workshop that and make sure that looks.
But if that is a feedback, please let me know. We were actually discussing fonts last week. We were talking. I was looking into fonts, but anyway, please let us read.
And like the other reason why we are kind of going like all in making this chat window better, it's like a continuation of this theme of like 2018 that I've been talking about, is that we're really trying to push into the really like meaningful changes, as opposed to just like the incremental surface level. It's just like tweak this and tweak that, which we did a lot of like the last half of last year. But now we're really trying to say, hey, if the text chat window needs to be like rebuilt from the ground up, we should do it. If the game needs a voice chat, a new pass on voice chat in the game, and it's hard to do it, we should just do it. If the game needs to have World Conquest and it's going to take like a whole bunch of iterations, and we're going to have to suffer through lots of problems, we should just do it. We're sort of like trying to avoid like running away from like these issues, or I guess maybe that's the wrong word, but we want to avoid like shying away from them, right? And we want to kind of like go in deep for each one, and sort of make sure that the work needs to be done to make what it needs to be, right?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, like regardless of like any of the features that we're talking about, we want to make a good game.
Yeah.
And we're pretty committed to doing what it takes to make that happen.
And excited to go on this, to try to make the best game that we can.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's really all we're doing every day. Like, I mean, you guys, like we talk every day, Matt and HB, and like the mandate is always, what is the best thing we can do to make this game better in the next version? Like we literally never stop and think about like what else is going on. Like we're just like, okay,
screw it.
What's the best use of this time that we have in these next 3-4 weeks? All right, let's do this. Let's make this better, and our complete focus is on that, right? So yeah.
Cool. All right, let's move on to the next topic.
Talk too much.
As we get really like sentimental. Okay, guys. So
it's you then.
So this has been a fun little journey. So let me tell you a little bit of a story about Map 9. Map 9 was actually planned like a long time ago. Like I think around the time when we built Far North Coast, we had plans for Map 9. We had actually talked a lot about what it was, Mark and I, and what we wanted it to be. And as we built out the game and we built Westgate, actually at the time of Westgate, it was like, do we do the top left or do we do the bottom left? I remember like there was a time when we were discussing which one would come next. And it was up in the air for a moment, but obviously we decided on Westgate. And so we had a plan for it even then. And then as we started to work on the game, the plans completely changed. So then we started working on sort of getting World Conquest out. And now that we have a really good plan that what Morin County is going to be, a lot of you guys thought it was going to be named Ismont's Delta. That was just a placeholder name as well that HB had put in because it was on the map. So sorry to anybody who's disappointed. But some of you guys have seen, in the lore hounds have seen Morin County mentioned in the past. And so that was always sort of in my mind as maybe what it would be called. But basically, in a nutshell, we wanted to evoke feelings of Battle of the Bulge. My brain just stopped. Battle of the Bulge, sort of more of like a war zone, of more of a bit of a no man's land style feeling, but in the snow, in the like a frozen coastal. It's a little coastal. It's actually not as big of a coast as some of the other maps. There is like a coast, but it's not this like massive coast like in Farnock or something. And on top of that, there's going to be thick areas of like dense woods. There's going to be open clearings. There's going to be trenches, which is something that you guys have talked about for a very long time. Wanting they're not dynamic, but there will be functional, usable trenches. That will require a little bit of work, and there will be. It's going to be a little bit more open than Callahan's Passage, but it's going to be a little bit more closed than Weathered Expanse. So it's going to sort of sit somewhere in between. But like Callahan's Passage is really tight and really closed, and lots of like corridors and stuff. Mm-hmm. But Weathered Expanse is basically just a wide open field. So this is going to have a little bit of that, a little bit of Umber Wildwood, but not quite as thick forest as Umber Wildwood, and not quite as consistent forest as Umber. Like Umber Wildwood is basically like in the half of the map, it's just boom forest the whole way. This is going to be a little bit more spread out across the whole thing. I think it'll be really exciting. The one thing I will say is the very first version that you guys are going to see is going to be, we're going to take an approach of testing sort of the overall level design and map design before we go into like really digging in and like polishing the way it looks. So the first version may not look quite as polished as you're used to, but it should still be just as fun and functional. So I'm excited to get it in your hands. It's an exciting map because I think it's a little different than everything else, but I think it'll fit really nicely as like a complement to the other 8 maps. And it will complete our 9x9 or 3x3 grid. Sorry, 9x9 would be really good, wouldn't it? Our 3x3 grid.
9x9 grid.
So, a
couple people are mentioning the scale of the trench. So the trench changes dramatically. There's wider areas. There's really thin areas. There's areas where you can't climb out. There's areas where you can shoot. It's gonna. I think the trenches are gonna be exciting. The trenches actually go between 2 major towns and a minor town, so you can actually walk through them. It's kind of a large network, so you can actually walk through them between 2 towns and actually also a minor town. So that'll be weird, and I'm really interested to see how if people even like hopefully it's useful. Like I think that's gonna be the test. Is like we want trenches to be a major part of the game, but we also want to make sure they're really functional and fun to interact with.
Yeah, and we hope to get this in a dev branch soon, so that we can start to get your feedback on it.
Yep.
Exactly, and that'll be happening soon-ish.
Yeah.
I don't know when, but soon-ish.
Soon. Too soon.
Too definitely too soon, but it'll but you guys will be playing in this map sooner than later. So, all right, let's move on to the next. The next part, just Q&A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you want to just go back a couple slides and just kind of go through them one more time without the camera in the way? So,
this one?
Yeah, just do text window and then we'll.
Next one.
Just to talk about this for a second, there are regions of like ice that we've been working on. It actually looks a lot better than this now. Anthony's done an amazing job.
Yeah, actually I saw the ice that he was working on. Looks pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's looking pretty cool. And then this is just a section of trenches.
And these look really sweet, actually. Like the kit that he created.
Yeah, and this isn't even polished up yet. This is like just laid out. So I think it's going to look really sharp.
Yeah.
Cool.
QA?
All right, up to questions. If you guys have questions, we hopefully will have answers. So please ask them. There was some questions earlier, but I don't remember what they were.
I think there's probably something coming. Is there any lore in the new map? I saw a question somewhere.
Is there any lore in the new map? We'll see.
Good.
I want there to be. There will be eventually. I don't know about V1, but for sure. I mean, I'm always adding new lore, so. Maybar66 says, we saw clan chat and text update. How will it work? Will you add clan stuff? Question mark.
So clan is something that we are projecting. That the reason why I put it there is that is also like a carrot for us to make it work in game. We have plans to see if we can integrate clan, a whole clan system. That's what we want to do. It would be part of the communications update, or at least of a communications update, some way, shape, or form. There's a very good chance there's not going to be there for the first implementation but the filter might be there if you already are in a clan or something like that. But for now, it wouldn't be there.
Yeah, like a full-fledged clan system. I think that there are things that are more important than that in
short period, like
in terms of all the communication tools or tools to help players work together, that we feel are high priority. A clan system is not necessarily like a full-fledged clan system, right? Might not be first in line, but it's there.
To be fair, I was like looking into this as well, like even like before we were working into the chat system, I was looking into how if we end up going like doing mock-ups on how it could work in game. So it is something that is definitely on our mind, particularly. I know it's on my mind a lot because I want it in game, but it's not for the near future. I put it there because I think it's a nice opportunity for us to explore it, and this was supposed to be only like in studio mock-ups. Right, I never expected anybody else to see it, so that's why I put it there.
Just for the record, we do that for quite a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like we did it for all of the aiming reticles and everything. We made mock-ups, little animations and things that were not seen by anybody. So we do this regularly. I think it was just an exciting thing that we wanted to talk about.
Even though that's why some of the text that is there might be dodgy. So apologies for that.
Aquilus asks, I don't even know if I'm saying that right. So
Aquilus?
Aquilus. Trenches will be able to build boxes, barbed wire, tank traps, sandbags. I think there's still some stuff to figure out around that. I know the way that I have envisioned it is that you won't be able to build really much in there. There'll be certain areas that you can build because we don't want you just like making them completely useless. So, but we haven't decided like what the extent of that is going to be yet. So you'll figure it out as soon as the map is launched. At the current pace of the World Conquest test, a current one I'm assuming, when do we expect to see the next test begin? Will there any chance of a weekend start, assuming the current test ends within the next couple of days?
So,
Gaming, sir.
right. I think we're still figuring that one out. I think it depends for sure on how long this one go for, and I think it also depends on what value we feel like we would get out of it without. Because one thing we won't have is a new version ready for this week, right?
Yeah.
So the question is, what value would we get from not changing anything and running the test over again? Which there might be some value there. So
Just more data points, maybe.
yeah, exactly. So we're still figuring that out. I think that in terms of like the roadmap, I think that we are gonna try to move. I think sooner rather than later, we want to move like the whole game over to World Conquest, and we want to complete the 3x3 grid. Because if you actually look at the number of players that were playing Foxhole throughout the weekend, if everyone was playing in the Conquest, it'd be filled like constantly, right? And I think that we want to get to that milestone as soon as possible, where we move to more of a complete, I guess like one world experience without the server browser, with the home regions in there, and we want to get to that as fast as possible. So yeah, we just have to see.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I saw Bear asks, have we discussed keeping or changing the stagger system? He says that he made a post on Reddit the other day, wondering if we had any thoughts.
The stagger system.
Yeah, so
The
you get shot, you
encumbrance?
kind of
Right.
like stagger.
The stagger.
I'm
not
assuming
encumbrance.
it's like, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming it's the when you take damage.
Yeah.
To be honest, we haven't really. That hasn't really been on our radar for a while. But I guess we will go take a look at that thread, and I think I think may have heard some people talking about it, but at the office. But
I don't know if it's perfect, but I personally like it a lot. If we just want to like talk about the merits of it, I think it was something when we added it made combat feel a little bit more visceral, a little bit more. I hate the word visceral. I shouldn't. I'm sorry, but it made it feel more like alive and like you're actually like taking damage, because like if you're really getting shot by something, you can't just stand there and like take the shots and like
and continue shooting.
And so that was.
yeah.
But there might be better.
But I mean, I'm
versions.
sure there's. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like, I'm as completely like, because that's like not my area of like expertise with the game. So like, as that, as far as that's concerned, I'm actually a huge fan of that. But Pachurin asked, now that we have lots of loading screens for World Conquest region transitions, how about loading screen tips, like for features like player profiles, all clicking, like just different like obscure tips.
yeah, I mean, I think that's just a function of time. I don't think there's,
That's something that we actually
Like-
said as soon as we got loading screens. Like, hey, we could put tips in here.
yeah. I think it's just a matter of like finding the development time to do it. I think we all want to do it. It's just sneaking in the half day. I'm always so optimistic, but
The 10 minutes.
the 5 minutes where we can slide in that feature.
I think the longer part would be writing out all the tips and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's something we want to do, so we just have to find the time to do it, right?
Actually, on that topic, if anybody's been playing Monster Hunter World, they actually do a really cool thing where they don't just have just tips, or like in Dark Souls they show items, right? But they also have like lore and tips all mixed together, and you can cycle between 5. And I thought that was really interesting, because then it's like, oh, if you know something, there might be something else for you that you don't know, because it always randomly chooses 5 things.
Yeah,
I think things like that are
Divinity 2, which I was playing again yesterday. I noticed exactly that. They do very similar. They just have a text box on top of the loading screen, and that text box gets filled with tips. And sometimes they're not just tips; they're just like things about the world.
random things.
But they are a small pool, so that even if you miss it, it comes back quicker. And every loading screen is a different pool, a different small pool.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool. I think there's lots of cool ideas
Yeah.
there, and I'd love to see something like that. So this is actually a really good question, and it's not one that like I don't think a lot of people have thought about, but we definitely have. When the 9th map gets implemented, do you think of a possibility? What do you think of the possibility to make it north versus south instead of east versus west? It would enable naval battles to work better with the current map design. Your thoughts, Mark?
Yeah. I think that we've definitely thought about that. We talked about how naval is going to fit into this picture. I think the naval stuff is something that we're kind of taking a break from so that we can focus on other things, because it's just another. It would just trying to tackle that while we're doing all this World Conquest stuff will be hard, right? But I think that in terms of like how the maps can be, the layouts can change to be more supportive of like the overall style of war that we have right now. Like we said, we're gonna go back and like revamp most of the maps at some point, and then we're gonna put some thought into that, right? From north to south, that's an interesting thought. I think that, you know, it's something we could think about. But yeah, like I guess the conclusion is that like we definitely think that there's a lot of room to improve the overall flow of the maps from the 3x3 grid perspective. I think Matt and I are just gonna have to have a lot of conversations about that.
It's something we talk about regularly anyway, and it's something that like we're not, until it feels like correct, because there is like a moment where everything sort of clicks. We're not just gonna be settled like just because it is the way it is. One of the reasons it was east to west was because there's a lot of stuff involving home regions, and actually, you know, there was a lot of reasons for east-west, although like I'm sure a lot of people I've seen, a lot of people say like, well, from a lore perspective, it's south, north, south, but like,
so yeah,
like it is, but it isn't, because it's not that black and white.
The coasts were set up the way they were to support the balancing the player population in the case where one side gets pushed all the way, so that you could have the support of the home region, right? That was why it was done that way, but I do agree that like for the naval combat, it's not the best for that. So, you know, it's something we're gonna have to work on, right?
But first, let's get a 3x3 map, and then get that working, and then we're gonna iterate. Maybar66 asks, will the stopping power of all guns be adjusted in the near future? A pistol bullet slows you down the same as a rifle.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
I think it's worth mentioning, like, all of that stuff is going to be rebalanced in the future.
Yeah, like I think that like the combat mechanics, I do think require a pass, right? Mm-hmm. And there's certain you know, mechanics like going prone, and that aren't working exactly like how we want it to work, right? And I think like in terms of stuff like stopping power, it's a very good point, because that could be another way that we can vary the weapons, right? That by stopping power, because you're right, it doesn't make sense that you know, like a pistol, the weakest pistol in the game, has the same amount of stopping power as like a shotgun at point blank range, right? Besides the amount of like damage it does, I think it varies it a bit on that, but yeah, no, that's a good point. It's something we
pretty good point actually.
Take a look at.
I'm going to take one more question, but if anybody has any questions about World Conquest or feedback about World Conquest or any of that, please go to our Discord. Put in the feedback in the discussion threads. We are reading them and actively engaging in those, so please do that. So Edge Esquira asks, what will be done for game balance in the future? Currently, we have huge clans who dominate entire wars, especially for weekly wars in the past has been ugly. I will say, like, this is one of those things we were talking about in terms of mentality. Like, things are going to change. But I do think World Conquest is going to have a huge impact on the way clans play the game.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be possible to dominate in quite the same way.
Yeah.
As maybe we've already seen a little bit.
You know, there's like skill balancing, and there's like the player numbers type of balancing. And for the player numbers, we've been testing a system where your port base does get more tech, more resources. And after this war, we're going to take a look at the data and see how well that's worked out. The tech trees haven't been too far off balance, right? I mean, they're not exactly in the same place, but
That's expected.
But that's expected.
And you did say you played it safe with the tech trees for the first couple versions, right?
Yeah, but you know, one of the things there is that it's not like totally unbalanced, and there's other things that we're taking a look at, like number of like casualties, and those numbers don't look too crazy there either. And yeah, we have to just take a look at that, but we're specifically making sure that the some of the player for the skill gap, that's another problem, but at least for the player numbers, I think we're really focused on making sure that doesn't ruin the conquest, right? So
yeah, it should be fun regardless. So there's actually one question that I want to ask because I think it's fun, and then we're gonna end the stream. What was the most unexpected thing you've seen so far in World Conquest?
Unexpected?
Yeah, like the thing that surprised you the most.
Well, I'm not sure if this was like so much of a surprise, but it was exciting to see the Colonials make a comeback on Saturday. I personally thought that was a well fought like battle, and it lasted a very long time, and it was nice because I think a lot of people thought the war was over, and it was nice to see those players actually rallying and trying to fight back, which is something that, you know, and there's issues there. You know, I'm not saying there's not issues with the town flipping that happens at night and stuff like that. You know, there's definitely issues there, but it's nice to see that. It's very rare to see a comeback in Foxhole Classic. It's very rare, right? And it was nice to see that it wasn't over yet, and the port-based mechanics that we put in were working to some extent. Like the way that worked out on Saturday was almost exactly how we wanted it to be. Whereas if you were pushed up against the coast, it's not over yet. Like you can still make a comeback. You're still just as, you know, just in as good of a position. I mean, maybe not just as good as a position as the starting point, but you are in a position that you can make a comeback and you're not like powerless, right? And I thought that was exciting to see. Yeah, it was very exciting.
Cool. Sounds good. So we're going to be back in 2 weeks. We're going to be working really hard to continue to deliver World Conquest stuff. I actually won't be back in 2 weeks. I won't be here on the next Devstream. So maybe there'll be a guest or something.
Yeah, we'll try to get someone else.
Who's gonna be manning this thing?
Like, why don't you guys tell us who you want to see on the stream, and we'll try to get that person.
I mean, everyone's just gonna say forget to find chicken.
Oh, that's gonna be hard. Well, thank you very much for watching. There you go. If you're seeing this on YouTube, don't forget to check this link. Don't forget to check Foxhole on Twitch on Tuesdays, every 2 Tuesdays, so you can ask questions live and catch this live. Another thing is the art contest is still going on. The deadline is coming soon on March 9, if I'm not mistaken.
So get your arts, get your writing in.
Yes.
We want lots and lots of entries.
That's some pretty cool stuff.
If you think that you are terrible, you're not. So just do something anyway.
Yes.
And we want to see all sorts of stuff in that contest. And there's still time. We're still going to be judging. And remember, you get a little goodie bag full of stuff, and you get to make a permanent impact on the game.
Yeah,
so
that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. So it's worth it.
Yeah, and last thing is that, well, for my birthday tomorrow, I want to see all the suggestions for the chat in the chat channel. So please do.
All right.
That's your birthday present.
That's my birthday present. If you guys can keep on topic, that's gonna be my birthday present.
All right. See you guys in a month.